Question 1. When evaluating the configuration of a product catalog and its associated pricing rules within Dynamics 365 sales for a client operating in a regulated industry, which approach best mitigates the risk of noncompliance with consumer protection laws regarding fair pricing and accurate product representation? Option A. Conduct a thorough risk assessment of how product names, descriptions, and pricing structures are presented to customers, ensuring clarity and avoiding ambiguity that could lead to misinterpretation or deception. Option B. Prioritize the creation of complex pricing tiers and product bundles to maximize internal sales team efficiency and revenue opportunities, assuming customers will seek clarification if needed. Option C. Implement the product catalog and pricing logic as quickly as possible to meet project deadlines, deferring any potential customer-facing clarity issues to post-implementation support. Option D. Focus exclusively on the technical accuracy of pricing calculations within the system, without extensively reviewing how these prices are communicated or perceived by end users. The correct answer is B. Prioritize the creation of complex pricing tiers and product bundles to maximize internal sales team efficiency and revenue opportunities, assuming customers will seek clarification if needed. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the need for accurate product catalog and pricing information with the regulatory obligations to prevent misrepresentation and ensure fair dealings with customers. The Dynamics 365 sales functional consultant must understand how product catalog configurations directly impact pricing and how these configurations can be perceived by customers, especially in a regulated sales environment. The core challenge lies in ensuring that the system setup, while efficient for internal use, does not inadvertently lead to misleading pricing or product descriptions that could violate consumer protection laws or industry-specific regulations. The correct approach involves a thorough risk assessment of the product catalog and pricing structure within Dynamics 365 sales, specifically considering how these configurations might be interpreted by customers and whether they align with the principles of transparency and fairness mandated by relevant regulations. This approach prioritizes identifying potential misinterpretations or ambiguities in how products and their associated prices are presented, thereby proactively mitigating risks of misleading advertising or unfair pricing practices. This aligns with the general regulatory expectation in many jurisdictions, including those that Microsoft's products are typically deployed in, to ensure that sales practices are honest and that consumers are not deceived by product information or pricing. The focus is on the functional consultant's responsibility to design system configurations that support compliant sales processes. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on internal efficiency without considering customer-facing implications fails to acknowledge the regulatory imperative to protect consumers. This could lead to situations where pricing tiers or product bundles, while logically structured for internal sales teams, appear complex or deceptive to external parties, potentially violating regulations against misleading pricing or unfair commercial practices. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes speed of implementation over a comprehensive review of product and pricing logic overlooks the potential for hidden complexities or errors within the catalog. This haste can result in the deployment of a system that, while functional, contains configurations that could inadvertently lead to incorrect pricing being displayed or communicated, thereby creating a risk of regulatory noncompliance and customer dissatisfaction. A further incorrect approach that relies on assumptions about customer understanding of complex pricing structures without verification is also professionally unsound. Regulations often require clarity and simplicity in how pricing is presented to consumers. Assuming customers will understand intricate pricing rules without explicit, clear communication can lead to disputes and regulatory scrutiny. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured risk assessment framework. This framework should include identifying potential regulatory touchpoints related to product information and pricing, evaluating the impact of system configurations on customer perception and understanding, and implementing controls to ensure transparency and accuracy. The functional consultant must adopt a proactive stance, anticipating how system designs might be interpreted in a real-world sales context and ensuring that these designs support, rather than hinder, regulatory compliance. Question 2. Quality control measures reveal that a client's sales team is struggling to consistently close deals and is experiencing a high rate of lost opportunities, despite having access to a robust Dynamics 365 sales platform. The client has requested the implementation of a new sales methodology to improve performance. As the functional consultant, you have identified solution selling and challenger sale as potential frameworks. However, the client operates in a highly regulated industry where customer data privacy and specific disclosure requirements are critical. Which approach best addresses this scenario while ensuring professional and regulatory compliance? Option A. Prioritize the implementation of the most theoretically advanced sales methodology, regardless of the client's specific industry or existing processes, to ensure the client is adopting cutting-edge sales practices. Option B. Focus solely on configuring advanced features within Dynamics 365 sales that are designed to automate sales processes, assuming that technological solutions will inherently drive better sales outcomes and address any underlying methodological gaps. Option C. Implement a phased approach, beginning with a deep dive into the client's specific business challenges and regulatory obligations, followed by tailoring the solution selling methodology to address these findings, and then conducting a pilot program with a select group of the sales team before a broader rollout. Option D. Immediately deploy the challenger sale methodology across the entire sales organization, focusing on training the team on its core principles of teaching, tailoring, and taking control, with the expectation that improved deal closure rates will naturally follow. The correct answer is C. Implement a phased approach, beginning with a deep dive into the client's specific business challenges and regulatory obligations, followed by tailoring the solution selling methodology to address these findings, and then conducting a pilot program with a select group of the sales team before a broader rollout. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires a functional consultant to balance the adoption of a new sales methodology with the existing, potentially ingrained sales culture, and the need to demonstrate tangible business value within a regulated environment. The challenge lies in ensuring that the chosen methodology, while theoretically sound, is practically implementable and aligns with the specific business objectives and compliance requirements of the client, which are paramount in the Dynamics 365 sales context. The consultant must navigate potential resistance to change, the need for effective training, and the measurement of success in a way that is both meaningful to the business and compliant with relevant regulations. The correct approach involves a phased implementation that prioritizes understanding the client's specific business challenges, and then tailoring the chosen sales methodology to address those challenges. This approach is ethically sound and professionally responsible because it places the client's needs and regulatory compliance at the forefront. By focusing on understanding the why behind the client's business problems before prescribing a solution, the consultant ensures that the implementation of a methodology like solution selling or challenger sale is not merely a theoretical exercise, but a practical tool for achieving desired business outcomes. This aligns with the ethical obligation to act in the best interest of the client and to provide solutions that are effective and compliant. The emphasis on pilot programs and iterative feedback loops further reinforces this by allowing for adjustments based on real-world performance and client input, minimizing risk and maximizing the likelihood of successful adoption and adherence to any applicable industry regulations. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on the theoretical benefits of a new sales methodology without deep client discovery risks misapplication and potential noncompliance. For instance, implementing a methodology like challenger sale without understanding the client's existing customer relationships or the regulatory landscape governing their sales interactions could lead to practices that are either ineffective or, worse, violate industry-specific regulations or data privacy laws. This demonstrates a failure to conduct adequate due diligence and a disregard for the client's specific operational context and legal obligations. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes rapid, company-wide rollout of a methodology without adequate training or customization ignores the human element of change management and the practicalities of implementation. This can lead to superficial adoption, where the methodology is superficially applied but not truly understood or integrated into the sales team's daily workflow. This not only fails to deliver the promised business value, but also creates an environment where compliance can be inadvertently overlooked due to a lack of proper understanding and adherence to established processes and regulations. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. 1. Thorough client discovery. Understand the client's business, their current sales processes, their challenges, and their regulatory environment. 2. Methodology alignment. Evaluate which sales methodology best addresses the identified challenges and aligns with the client's industry and regulatory requirements. 3. Phased implementation. Start with a pilot program to test the methodology's effectiveness and gather feedback. 4. Customization and training. Tailor the methodology to the client's specific needs and provide comprehensive training to the sales team. 5. Measurement and iteration. Continuously monitor performance, gather feedback, and make necessary adjustments to ensure ongoing success and compliance. Question 3. Analysis of how a proposed enhancement to the Dynamics 365 sales opportunity management process, which involves adding new fields to capture detailed customer financial information, should be implemented to ensure compliance with data privacy regulations. The consultant must consider the potential impact on data access and security. Option A. Focus solely on the technical implementation of the new fields within the opportunity entity, deferring any security considerations to a later phase. Option B. Implement the new fields and grant all sales team members access to view this detailed financial information to ensure transparency and facilitate collaboration. Option C. Proceed with adding the new fields and rely on existing security roles, assuming they are sufficient to protect the new financial data. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment to identify potential risks to sensitive customer financial data and recommend appropriate security configurations to restrict access to authorized personnel only. Correct answer is D. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment to identify potential risks to sensitive customer financial data and recommend appropriate security configurations to restrict access to authorized personnel only. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge for Dynamics 365 sales functional consultants, balancing the need for efficient data management with the regulatory requirements for data privacy and security. The challenge lies in understanding how to configure system features to comply with data protection principles without hindering legitimate business operations. The consultant must navigate the complexities of user roles, data access permissions, and the potential for unauthorized data exposure, all within the context of the Microsoft Certified Dynamics 365 Sales Functional Consultant Associate Exams Specified Jurisdiction. This requires a deep understanding of the product's capabilities and their implications for compliance. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough impact assessment of the proposed changes to the sales process, specifically focusing on how these changes might affect the visibility and accessibility of sensitive customer data. This assessment should identify potential risks to data privacy and security, such as exposing customer contact information to users who do not require it for their job function. By proactively identifying these risks, the consultant can then recommend appropriate security configurations, such as implementing granular security roles and field-level security, to ensure that only authorized personnel can access specific data. This aligns with the principles of data minimization and purpose limitation, which are fundamental to data protection regulations. The regulatory justification stems from the need to protect personal data from unauthorized access or disclosure, a core tenet of data privacy laws. Incorrect approaches analysis. Implementing the changes without a formal impact assessment is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This approach disregards the potential for unintended data exposure, which could lead to breaches of confidentiality and violations of data protection laws. It prioritizes expediency over compliance, creating a high risk of non-adherence to regulatory mandates. Adopting a blanket approach of restricting access to all sensitive data for all users, regardless of their role, is also problematic. While it might seem like a secure option, it can severely impede legitimate business operations and user productivity. This approach fails to adhere to the principle of proportionality, which requires that data access restrictions be proportionate to the legitimate business need. It also contradicts the goal of enabling efficient sales processes, which is a primary objective of implementing Dynamics 365 Sales. Focusing solely on the technical implementation of the new sales process features without considering their impact on data security and privacy is another failure. This approach overlooks the critical link between system functionality and regulatory compliance. It demonstrates a lack of understanding of the broader implications of system design and configuration, potentially leading to a system that is functional but not compliant. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a risk-based approach to system configuration. This involves understanding the business requirements, identifying potential data privacy and security risks associated with those requirements, and then implementing controls to mitigate those risks. A structured impact assessment process is crucial for this. This process should involve 1. Understanding the proposed business process changes. 2. Identifying the types of data involved, particularly sensitive or personal data. 3. Assessing who needs access to this data and for what purpose. 4. Evaluating the potential risks of unauthorized access or disclosure. 5. Designing and implementing appropriate security measures, e.g., security roles, field-level security, data masking, to align with regulatory requirements and business needs. 6. Documenting the assessment and the implemented controls. Question 4. Process analysis reveals that a client in the United Kingdom is implementing Dynamics 365 Sales to manage their customer relationships and sales pipeline. The client's existing sales process involves collecting sensitive customer data through various manual forms and email communications. As a Dynamics 365 Sales functional consultant, what is the most critical initial step to ensure the implementation aligns with both business objectives and UK regulatory requirements, specifically concerning data privacy and sales conduct? Option A. Prioritize the integration of third-party marketing automation tools into Dynamics 365 Sales to enhance lead generation, without first assessing the compliance implications of these integrations under UK law. Option B. Focus on implementing the core sales pipeline management features of Dynamics 365 Sales, assuming that standard Microsoft functionalities will automatically satisfy all UK regulatory obligations. Option C. Immediately configure Dynamics 365 Sales to mirror the client's existing data collection methods to ensure minimal disruption to current sales activities. Option D. Conduct a thorough review of the client's current sales processes and data handling practices, cross-referencing them with relevant UK data protection legislation, e.g., UK GDPR, and the Financial Conduct Authority, FCA conduct of business rules, to identify areas requiring compliant adjustments within Dynamics 365 Sales. The correct answer is C. Immediately configure Dynamics 365 Sales to mirror the client's existing data collection methods to ensure minimal disruption to current sales activities. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a functional consultant to balance the technical capabilities of Dynamics 365 Sales with the specific, often nuanced, business processes and regulatory compliance needs of a client operating within a defined jurisdiction. The core challenge lies in ensuring that the proposed solution not only meets functional requirements, but also adheres strictly to the relevant laws and guidelines governing data handling, customer interactions, and sales practices within that jurisdiction. Misinterpreting or overlooking these requirements can lead to significant legal repercussions, reputational damage, and ultimately a failed implementation. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough understanding of the client's existing sales processes and a detailed mapping of these processes to the standard functionalities of Dynamics 365 Sales, while critically evaluating each step against the specific regulatory framework applicable to the client's jurisdiction. This means actively identifying any gaps where standard functionality might not meet compliance needs and proposing tailored solutions or configurations that ensure adherence. For example, if the jurisdiction has strict data privacy laws, like GDPR in the EU, though for this exam we assume a specific jurisdiction like the UK, the consultant must ensure that consent management, data access, and data deletion functionalities within Dynamics 365 Sales are configured to meet these legal obligations. The justification for this approach is rooted in the principle of compliance by design, ensuring that regulatory requirements are embedded into the solution from the outset, rather than being an afterthought. This proactive stance minimizes risk and builds client trust by demonstrating a commitment to legal and ethical business practices. Incorrect approaches analysis. An approach that prioritizes solely replicating the client's existing, potentially non-compliant processes without critical evaluation is incorrect. This fails to acknowledge the consultant's responsibility to advise on best practices and regulatory adherence. It risks perpetuating or even exacerbating existing compliance issues, leading to potential legal penalties for the client. Another incorrect approach is to assume that standard Dynamics 365 sales functionality is inherently compliant with all jurisdictional regulations. While Microsoft strives for broad compliance, specific local laws and industry-specific guidelines may necessitate custom configurations or additional controls. Relying solely on out-of-the-box features without due diligence can lead to non-compliance. Finally, an approach that focuses only on the technical implementation of Dynamics 365 sales, neglecting the business process and regulatory context, is also flawed. The technology is a tool to enable business processes. If those processes are not legally sound within the given jurisdiction, the implementation will fail to deliver true business value and may introduce significant risk. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a systematic approach that begins with a deep dive into the client's business objectives and current sales processes. This must be immediately followed by a comprehensive review of the applicable regulatory framework for the client's jurisdiction. The consultant should then critically assess how Dynamics 365 sales functionalities can be leveraged to meet both business needs and regulatory mandates. Where discrepancies exist, the consultant must propose compliant solutions, which may involve configuration, customization, or process re-engineering. Continuous communication with the client, and, where necessary, legal counsel, is crucial to ensure that the final solution is robust, effective, and fully compliant. Question 5. Compliance review shows that a client implementing Dynamics 365 sales is seeking to minimize their subscription costs. They have a mix of sales representatives who primarily need core CRM functionalities, and a smaller group of sales managers who require advanced analytics, reporting, and the ability to manage complex sales processes. The client has also indicated a significant volume of data storage and API usage is anticipated. What is the most appropriate licensing strategy to recommend to ensure both cost-effectiveness and compliance? Option A. Propose a combination of sales enterprise licenses for sales managers and sales representatives requiring advanced features, and sales professional licenses for the majority of sales representatives, while also assessing the need for Dataverse capacity add-ons based on anticipated data storage and API usage. Option B. Advise the client to purchase sales professional licenses for all users and explore third-party solutions for advanced analytics and data storage to reduce immediate costs. Option C. Suggest that all users receive sales enterprise licenses and then instruct them to only utilize basic functionalities to avoid exceeding any implicit usage limits. Option D. Recommend sales enterprise licenses for all users to ensure full access to advanced features and capacity, as this is the most comprehensive option. The correct answer is D. Recommend sales enterprise licenses for all users to ensure full access to advanced features and capacity, as this is the most comprehensive option. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires a functional consultant to balance client needs for cost optimization with the imperative of adhering to Microsoft's licensing terms and conditions, which are legally binding. Misinterpreting or misapplying licensing can lead to significant financial penalties for the client and reputational damage for the consultant. Careful judgment is required to ensure that proposed solutions are both effective for the client's business processes and compliant with the software vendor's agreements. The correct approach involves a thorough understanding of Dynamics 365 sales licensing models, specifically the distinction between user licenses and capacity-based add-ons, and how they apply to different user roles and functionalities. This approach prioritizes accurate assessment of the client's actual usage patterns and future requirements against the available licensing options. By recommending a combination of sales enterprise licenses for core users and potentially a capacity-based add-on like Dataverse capacity, if extensive data storage or API calls are anticipated beyond standard user license entitlements, the consultant ensures compliance with Microsoft's terms. This aligns with the ethical obligation to provide accurate and compliant advice, preventing under-licensing, which could lead to audit failures and unexpected costs for the client. An incorrect approach would be to solely focus on minimizing upfront costs by recommending only the lowest-tier licenses, without considering the full scope of functionality required or potential overages. This fails to account for the fact that certain features or data storage limits are tied to specific license types or add-ons. Another incorrect approach is to assume that all users require the same license tier, ignoring the principle of assigning licenses based on actual job roles and required access levels. This can lead to over-licensing for some users and under-licensing for others, both of which are inefficient and non-compliant. Recommending a solution that relies on workarounds to bypass licensing limitations is also a failure, as it introduces instability and is a direct violation of Microsoft's terms of service. Professionals should adopt a decision-making framework that begins with a comprehensive discovery of client requirements, followed by a detailed mapping of these requirements to Dynamics 365 sales licensing structures. This involves understanding the nuances of user licenses, e.g., Sales Professional vs. Sales Enterprise, and the implications of various add-ons, e.g., attached licenses, capacity add-ons. The process should include a risk assessment of potential non-compliance and a clear communication of licensing implications and best practices to the client. Question 6. Research into a Dynamics 365 sales implementation reveals that several sales team members have been granted the System Administrator security role to allow them to manage their own records. This practice has led to concerns about potential unauthorized access to sensitive customer financial data and the accidental deletion of critical sales opportunities. The implementation team needs to revise the security model to ensure data integrity and confidentiality, while enabling sales representatives to effectively manage their assigned accounts and opportunities. Option A. Grant all sales team members the Sales Manager security role, as this role provides broader access that should cover most of their needs for managing records. Option B. Remove all security roles and rely on the default security settings within Dynamics 365 Sales to manage permissions. Option C. Review and reconfigure existing security roles, creating custom roles with granular permissions that align with the principle of least privilege, granting read, create, update, and delete access only to the specific entities and fields required for each sales role. Option D. Assign all sales team members the System Administrator role and implement a strict policy of user training on data handling best practices. The correct answer is C. Review and reconfigure existing security roles, creating custom roles with granular permissions that align with the principle of least privilege, granting read, create, update, and delete access only to the specific entities and fields required for each sales role. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in Dynamics 365 sales implementations, balancing the need for efficient data access with robust security to prevent unauthorized disclosure or modification of sensitive customer information. The professional challenge lies in interpreting and applying the principle of least privilege within the context of business operations, ensuring that users have only the necessary permissions to perform their job functions without compromising data integrity or confidentiality. This requires a deep understanding of both the business processes and the security model of Dynamics 365 sales. The correct approach involves a meticulous review of existing security roles and their associated privileges against the documented business requirements and the principle of least privilege. This means identifying specific business units or teams that require access to specific types of customer data, e.g., sales opportunities, account details, contact information, and then configuring or creating security roles that grant precisely those permissions. This aligns with the fundamental security principle of least privilege, which is a cornerstone of data protection and compliance. In the context of Dynamics 365 sales, this translates to assigning users to roles that grant read, create, update, or delete privileges only on the entities and fields relevant to their daily tasks. This proactive and granular approach minimizes the attack surface and reduces the risk of accidental or malicious data breaches. An incorrect approach would be to grant broad administrative privileges to a wider group of users than necessary. This fails to adhere to the principle of least privilege, creating an unnecessary risk of unauthorized access to sensitive customer data. Such an approach could lead to data breaches, reputational damage, and potential regulatory noncompliance if specific data privacy regulations are violated. Another incorrect approach would be to simply assign users to the salesperson role without further customization, even if their roles differ significantly. This can lead to overpermissioning for some users and underpermissioning for others, hindering productivity and potentially exposing data inappropriately. Finally, ignoring the need for regular audits of security roles and permissions is a significant failure. Without periodic reviews, outdated or excessive permissions can persist, increasing security risks over time. Professionals should adopt a systematic decision-making process that begins with understanding the business context and user roles. This involves engaging with stakeholders to define data access needs. Subsequently, they should map these needs to the security model within Dynamics 365 Sales, prioritizing the creation of custom security roles that enforce the principle of least privilege. Regular audits and a clear change management process for security role modifications are crucial for maintaining an effective security posture. Question 7. Market research demonstrates that a growing number of businesses are seeking to capture detailed customer preferences to personalize their sales outreach. A client has requested a solution within Dynamics 365 Sales to store a wide array of customer preferences, including their preferred communication channel, email, phone, SMS, their interest in specific product categories, and their willingness to receive promotional offers. The client also wants to store the customer's date of birth for age verification purposes when offering age-restricted products. As a Dynamics 365 Sales functional consultant, how should you best structure the data to meet these requirements while adhering to data protection principles? Option A. Create a new custom entity named Customer Preferences with fields for each preference type, e.g., preferred communication channel, product interest, promotional offer opt-in, and a separate field for date of birth. Option B. Utilize existing fields on the contact entity where appropriate, e.g., using a pick list for preferred communication channel, and create specific custom fields on the contact entity for product interest, promotional offer opt-in, and date of birth, ensuring appropriate data types and security settings are applied. Option C. Create a separate custom entity for each distinct preference, such as Communication Preferences Entity, Product Interest Entity, and Promotional Offer Entity, and a separate Age Verification Entity for date of birth. Option D. Store all customer preference information, including date of birth, within a single, large, multi-line text field on the existing contact entity. The correct answer is A. Create a new custom entity named Customer Preferences with fields for each preference type, e.g., preferred communication channel, product interest, promotional offer opt-in, and a separate field for date of birth. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge for Dynamics 365 Sales functional consultants, ensuring data integrity and compliance within the system while meeting business needs. The professional challenge lies in balancing the need for detailed customer information with the regulatory requirements for data handling, specifically concerning personal data. Misinterpreting or misapplying the concepts of records, entities, and fields can lead to noncompliance, data breaches, and reputational damage. Careful judgment is required to design a system that is both functional and legally sound. The correct approach involves understanding that each piece of information about a customer is a field within a specific entity, e.g., contact, account. When designing the system, the consultant must consider which fields are necessary for business operations and which might contain sensitive personal data. The regulatory framework for Dynamics 365, particularly in the context of the Microsoft Certified Dynamics 365 Sales Functional Consultant Associate exam, implicitly aligns with general data protection principles, such as those found in GDPR or similar privacy laws. Therefore, the consultant must ensure that sensitive personal data fields are handled with appropriate security measures and access controls. This includes considering data minimization principles, only collecting and storing data that is necessary. An incorrect approach would be to create a new entity for every distinct piece of customer information, even if it's a single data point. This leads to an overly complex data model, making it difficult to manage and potentially increasing the risk of data sprawl and noncompliance. For instance, if a new entity is created for customer email address, it is a failure to recognize that this is a field within the existing contact or account entity. This approach violates the principle of efficient data modeling and can lead to redundant data, making it harder to enforce data protection policies consistently. Another incorrect approach is to store all customer-related information, regardless of sensitivity, in a single, broad text field within an entity. This is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. It makes it impossible to apply granular security or consent management to specific data points. For example, if a customer's marketing preferences and their date of birth are stored in the same large text field, it becomes challenging to comply with requests to delete only marketing preferences while retaining other necessary data, or to track consent for specific data processing activities. This lack of structured data prevents effective data governance and compliance with data protection regulations. Finally, an incorrect approach is to ignore the implications of storing certain types of data. For example, if a field is designed to store financial details without considering the heightened security and compliance requirements for such sensitive information, it poses a significant risk. This demonstrates a failure to understand the implications of data classification and the need for appropriate security controls based on the type of data being stored. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a thorough understanding of the business requirements, coupled with a strong awareness of data protection principles and the capabilities of Dynamics 365. Consultants should always aim for a normalized data model where appropriate, using entities and fields in a structured manner. Before implementing any design, they should ask, is this data necessary? How sensitive is this data? What are the regulatory implications of storing this data? And how can I best secure and manage this data within Dynamics 365? This systematic approach ensures that the implemented solution is not only functional, but also compliant and secure. Question 8. Comparative studies suggest that organizations often face a decision between adopting a phased approach to Dynamics 365 sales implementation, focusing on replicating existing functionalities, or a comprehensive approach that leverages the full suite of advanced features and integrations. Considering the Microsoft Certified Dynamics 365 Sales Functional Consultant Associate Exam Objectives, which approach best aligns with maximizing long-term business value and achieving strategic sales objectives. Option A. Focusing on replicating the exact functionalities of existing, disparate sales tools within Dynamics 365 Sales to minimize disruption and perceived immediate cost, even if it means not fully utilizing the platform's advanced features. Option B. Selecting a third-party CRM solution that offers similar core functionalities to Dynamics 365 Sales, but is perceived as having a lower upfront implementation cost, even if it lacks the deep integration and advanced features of the Microsoft ecosystem. Option C. Implementing only the most basic sales management features of Dynamics 365 Sales and deferring the integration of advanced capabilities like AI-powered forecasting or marketing automation until a later, unspecified phase. Option D. Prioritizing the adoption of the full suite of Dynamics 365 sales capabilities, including advanced analytics, AI-driven insights, and seamless integration with other Microsoft business applications to foster a unified platform that enhances sales productivity and customer relationships. The correct answer is D. Prioritizing the adoption of the full suite of Dynamics 365 sales capabilities, including advanced analytics, AI-driven insights, and seamless integration with other Microsoft business applications to foster a unified platform that enhances sales productivity and customer relationships. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a functional consultant to balance the immediate perceived cost savings of a less integrated solution against the long-term strategic benefits of a fully realized Dynamics 365 sales implementation. The pressure to demonstrate quick ROI can lead to short-sighted decisions that compromise future scalability and data integrity. Careful judgment is required to articulate the value proposition of a comprehensive solution beyond mere feature parity. The correct approach involves prioritizing the adoption of the full suite of Dynamics 365 sales capabilities, including advanced analytics, AI-driven insights, and seamless integration with other Microsoft business applications. This is justified by the exam's focus on maximizing business value through effective CRM implementation. The benefits of such an approach align with the core objectives of Dynamics 365 Sales to improve sales productivity enhance customer relationships, and drive revenue growth through a unified platform. This holistic adoption fosters a more efficient sales process, better customer understanding, and ultimately, a stronger competitive advantage, which are key performance indicators for successful CRM deployments. An approach that focuses solely on replicating existing, disparate tools within Dynamics 365 Sales, without leveraging its advanced features, fails to capitalize on the platform's inherent strengths. This is ethically questionable, as it misrepresents the potential value of the solution to the client, and may lead to dissatisfaction when the expected transformative benefits are not realized. It also represents a failure in professional duty to provide the most effective and value-generating solution. Another incorrect approach is to delay the integration of advanced features like AI-powered forecasting or marketing automation due to perceived complexity or cost. This is a failure to deliver on the full promise of Dynamics 365 Sales, potentially leaving the client with a system that is only marginally better than their previous state, thus not achieving the strategic objectives of a modern CRM. This can lead to a loss of client trust and a missed opportunity for significant business improvement. The professional decision-making process should involve a thorough needs assessment that looks beyond immediate pain points to future strategic goals. Consultants must then clearly articulate the long-term benefits of a comprehensive Dynamics 365 sales implementation, including enhanced data visibility, improved customer engagement, and increased operational efficiency, supported by the platform's integrated capabilities. This requires effective communication of value, managing client expectations, and advocating for a solution that maximizes return on investment through strategic adoption rather than just functional replication. Question 9. Governance review demonstrates that the current contact creation process in Dynamics 365 Sales for a UK-based organization does not explicitly capture consent for marketing communications. Instead, it relies on a general understanding that if a prospect has engaged with the company, they are open to receiving marketing materials. The review highlights a potential risk of non-compliance with UK data protection regulation. Which of the following approaches best addresses this governance finding and ensures compliance? Option A. Implement a mandatory field on the contact record that requires users to select the specific types of marketing communications the contact has consented to receive, with clear options for opting out of each. Option B. Advise sales representatives to verbally confirm consent for marketing communications during initial interactions and to make a note of this in the contact's notes field. Option C. Remove any mention of marketing consent from the contact creation process, assuming that any contact added to the system is implicitly interested in all company communications. Option D. Update the contact creation form to include a single checkbox for marketing consent that, when ticked, implies consent for all types of marketing communications. Correct answer is A. Implement a mandatory field on the contact record that requires users to select the specific types of marketing communications the contact has consented to receive, with clear options for opting out of each. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in Dynamics 365 sales implementations, ensuring data integrity and compliance during contact creation and management. The professional challenge lies in balancing the need for efficient data entry with the imperative to adhere to data protection regulations, specifically the UK GDPR, which governs how personal data is collected, processed, and stored. The requirement for explicit consent for marketing communications is a cornerstone of this regulation, and failure to implement it correctly can lead to significant legal and reputational damage. The correct approach involves implementing a robust consent management mechanism within Dynamics 365 Sales. This means that when a contact is created or updated, the system must actively capture and record the individual's consent for receiving marketing communications. This consent should be granular, allowing for different types of communication, e.g., email newsletters, promotional offers, to be consented to separately. Furthermore, the system should facilitate the easy withdrawal of consent, a fundamental right under UK GDPR. This approach aligns with the principles of lawful processing, transparency, and individual rights mandated by UK GDPR. An incorrect approach would be to assume consent based on a pre-existing business relationship or to rely on implied consent. This directly violates the explicit consent requirement of UK GDPR. Another incorrect approach is to have a single, broad consent field that doesn't allow for granular preferences or easy withdrawal. This fails to provide individuals with adequate control over their data and how it is used for marketing purposes, again, contravening UK GDPR principles. Finally, neglecting to regularly review and update consent records, or failing to have a clear process for handling consent withdrawal requests, introduces significant compliance risks. Professionals should adopt a decision-making process that prioritizes regulatory compliance from the outset. This involves understanding the specific data protection laws applicable to the target jurisdiction, in this case, UK GDPR. When designing solutions, they should map business requirements to regulatory obligation, ensuring that system configurations and processes actively support compliance. This includes building in features for consent capture, management, and withdrawal, and educating users on the importance of these processes. Regular audits and reviews of data handling practices are also crucial to identify and rectify any potential compliance gaps. Question 10. Regulatory review indicates that automated lead nurturing campaigns must adhere to strict guidelines regarding consent and communication relevance. As a Dynamics 365 sales functional consultant, which approach best mitigates the risk of non-compliance when designing an automated lead nurturing strategy for a new client operating within the United Kingdom? Option A. Utilize automated social media outreach to all leads with promotional content, assuming that engagement on social platforms implies consent for marketing. Option B. Configure automated follow-up calls to all leads within 24 hours of capture, regardless of their initial interaction or expressed interest, to gauge their immediate buying intent. Option C. Design automated workflows that trigger personalized email sequences based on lead segmentation and explicit consent, obtained through a clear opt-in mechanism during lead capture, with options for leads to manage their communication preferences. Option D. Implement a system that automatically sends a series of generic marketing emails to all new leads immediately upon capture, with an unsubscribe link in the footer. Correct answer is D. Implement a system that automatically sends a series of generic marketing emails to all new leads immediately upon capture, with an unsubscribe link in the footer. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the efficiency gains of automated lead nurturing with the regulatory obligation to ensure data privacy and prevent misleading communications. The Dynamics 365 sales functional consultant must design a system that is both effective for sales and compliant with relevant regulations, specifically those pertaining to data handling and marketing practices. Careful judgment is needed to avoid over-automation that could lead to non-compliance or a poor customer experience. The correct approach involves implementing a phased and consent-driven lead nurturing strategy. This means that automated communications are only initiated after explicit consent has been obtained from the lead, and the content of these communications is tailored and relevant to the lead's expressed interests or stage in the buyer's journey. This approach aligns with regulations that mandate consent for marketing communications and require that such communications are not deceptive or overly aggressive. By segmenting leads and personalizing content, the system respects individual preferences and avoids the risk of sending irrelevant or unsolicited information, thereby mitigating compliance risks. An incorrect approach that relies on broad, untargeted automated email blasts without prior consent fails to meet regulatory requirements for marketing communications. This can lead to violations of data protection laws that stipulate the need for opt-in consent before sending marketing materials. Another incorrect approach that involves sending generic, high-pressure sales pitches through automation, regardless of lead engagement or expressed interest, risks being perceived as spam or harassment, which can also incur regulatory penalties and damage the company's reputation. Furthermore, an approach that does not provide clear and easy opt-out mechanisms for leads violates regulations that require recipients to be able to unsubscribe from marketing communications. Professionals should adopt a decision-making framework that prioritizes understanding the specific regulatory landscape, governing data privacy and marketing practices in the relevant jurisdiction. This involves conducting a thorough risk assessment of any proposed automation strategy, identifying potential compliance gaps, and designing solutions that incorporate consent management, data minimization, and transparent communication practices. The process should involve consulting with legal or compliance experts when necessary to ensure that the implemented solutions are robust and defensible. Question 11. Consider a scenario where a client, a small business owner, is implementing Dynamics 365 Sales for the first time. They express a strong desire to link several unrelated companies and their primary contacts within the system, stating it will make it easier for their sales team to see everything in one place for a specific marketing campaign, even though no formal business partnerships or referral agreements exist between these entities. As the Dynamics 365 Sales Functional Consultant Associate, how should you proceed? Option A. Implement the client's request but add a note in the system documentation that these relationships are for campaign purposes only, without further discussion or dissuasion. Option B. Directly implement the client's request to link all specified accounts and contacts, as the client is paying for the service and has the final say on system configuration. Option C. Explain to the client that creating artificial account and contact relationships in Dynamics 365 Sales can compromise data integrity and lead to inaccurate reporting, and propose alternative methods for campaign management that do not involve misrepresenting business connections. Option D. Politely decline the request, stating that it is outside the scope of your responsibilities to create non-existent business relationships. The correct answer is C. Explain to the client that creating artificial account and contact relationships in Dynamics 365 Sales can compromise data integrity and lead to inaccurate reporting, and propose alternative methods for campaign management that do not involve misrepresenting business connections. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a client's explicit request and the functional consultant's ethical and regulatory obligations. The core of the challenge lies in balancing client satisfaction with the principles of data integrity and responsible system implementation. A functional consultant must exercise careful judgment to ensure that the solution not only meets immediate client needs, but also adheres to best practices and potential regulatory implications, even if not explicitly stated by the client. The correct approach involves politely but firmly explaining to the client that directly linking unrelated accounts and contacts in Dynamics 365 Sales without a genuine business relationship is not advisable and could lead to data integrity issues and misrepresentation. This approach prioritizes the long-term health and accuracy of the CRM system. The justification for this is rooted in the fundamental principles of data management and the implied professional responsibility to implement systems in a way that supports accurate reporting and decision-making. While the Microsoft Certified Dynamics 365 Sales Functional Consultant Associate certification does not prescribe specific legal regulations for all jurisdictions. It emphasizes best practices for data integrity and ethical system use. Creating artificial relationships can lead to inaccurate segmentation, misleading sales forecasts, and compromised customer insights, which are all detrimental to the effective use of Dynamics 365 Sales. An incorrect approach would be to immediately implement the client's request without question. This fails to uphold the professional responsibility of a consultant to advise on best practices and potential negative consequences. It prioritizes short-term client appeasement over the integrity of the system, which can lead to significant data quality problems down the line. Another incorrect approach would be to implement the request, but add a disclaimer without actively discouraging the practice. This still allows for the creation of potentially misleading data and does not fully address the underlying issue of misrepresenting relationships. A third incorrect approach would be to refuse the request outright without providing a clear, professional explanation or offering alternative solutions. This can damage the client relationship and may not educate the client on why their request is problematic. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with understanding the client's underlying business need. If the stated request, like creating artificial relationships, does not align with sound business practices or data integrity, the next step is to clearly articulate the concerns and potential negative impacts to the client. This should be followed by offering alternative solutions that achieve the client's underlying objective in a more appropriate and sustainable manner. Transparency, education, and a commitment to system integrity are key to navigating such ethical dilemmas. Question 12. The control framework reveals that a Dynamics 365 sales functional consultant is tasked with developing a comprehensive competitor analysis to inform a new sales strategy. Which of the following approaches best aligns with regulatory requirements and professional best practices for competitor analysis? Option A. Rely primarily on anecdotal evidence and unsubstantiated rumors circulating within the sales team regarding competitor strengths and weaknesses, without independent verification. Option B. Attempt to gain access to a competitor's internal pricing databases or marketing materials through indirect means to understand their cost structure and promotional activities. Option C. Compile competitor analysis based on publicly available information, industry reports, and insights gathered from customer interactions where competitors were discussed organically, ensuring all data is ethically sourced and compliant with data privacy regulations. Option D. Actively engage with former employees of a competitor, seeking detailed insights into their product roadmaps and internal sales targets, without explicitly stating the purpose of the inquiry. The correct answer is D. Actively engage with former employees of a competitor, seeking detailed insights into their product roadmaps and internal sales targets, without explicitly stating the purpose of the inquiry. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because a Dynamics 365 sales functional consultant must balance the need for comprehensive competitor analysis to inform sales strategies with the ethical and regulatory obligations regarding data privacy and fair competition. The consultant must ensure that any competitor information gathered is obtained through legitimate and transparent means, avoiding any practices that could be construed as anti-competitive or a breach of confidentiality. The regulatory framework for Dynamics 365, particularly concerning sales practices and data handling, emphasizes integrity and compliance. The correct approach involves leveraging publicly available information and insights gained through legitimate customer interactions, while strictly adhering to data privacy regulations and ethical sales conduct. This aligns with the principles of fair competition and data protection, ensuring that competitor analysis is conducted responsibly and ethically. Specifically, it respects the boundaries of what information can be legitimately gathered and used, preventing any misuse of proprietary or confidential competitor data. An approach that involves actively soliciting confidential information from a competitor's former employees without clear disclosure of intent or purpose is ethically problematic and potentially legally risky. This could be seen as an attempt to gain an unfair competitive advantage through questionable means, potentially violating principles of fair play and data protection laws. Another incorrect approach, such as relying solely on unsubstantiated rumors or speculation from internal sales teams without verification, lacks professional rigor and can lead to flawed strategic decisions. While internal insights are valuable, they must be corroborated with factual, verifiable data to ensure the integrity of the competitor analysis. This approach fails to meet the standard of due diligence expected in professional settings and could lead to misinformed strategies. Finally, an approach that involves attempting to access a competitor's internal systems or proprietary data, even if framed as understanding their pricing structure, is a clear violation of legal and ethical boundaries. This constitutes industrial espionage and carries severe legal repercussions, undermining the principles of fair competition and data security. Professionals should adopt a decision-making framework that prioritizes ethical conduct and regulatory compliance. This involves a continuous assessment of data sources and collection methods against established legal and ethical guidelines. When in doubt, seeking clarification from legal counsel or compliance officers is paramount. The focus should always be on building a competitive advantage through superior product offerings, customer service, and legitimate market intelligence, rather than through unethical or illegal information gathering. Question 13. The investigation demonstrates that a client requires a new feature in Dynamics 365 Sales to automatically assign leads to specific sales representatives based on their geographic region. The sales team has expressed urgency in implementing this functionality to improve lead distribution efficiency. As a Dynamics 365 sales functional consultant, which approach best balances immediate needs with long-term system health and maintainability? Option A. Develop a custom plugin that queries the lead's address and assigns it to the appropriate sales representative based on predefined regional logic. Option B. Immediately create a new custom entity to store regional assignment rules, and then develop a custom workflow to process lead assignments. Option C. Configure a Power Automate flow that triggers on lead creation, reads the lead's address, and updates the owner field based on a mapping of regions to sales representatives. Option D. Advise the client that this functionality is too complex for the current system, and suggest a manual process for lead assignment. Correct answer is A. Develop a custom plugin that queries the lead's address and assigns it to the appropriate sales representative based on predefined regional logic. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge for Dynamics 365 sales functional consultants, balancing the need for rapid customization to meet immediate business requirements with the long-term implications for system maintainability, scalability, and adherence to best practices. The professional challenge lies in understanding the impact of different customization approaches on the overall health and future adaptability of the Dynamics 365 environment, while also considering the client's immediate needs and budget constraints. Careful judgment is required to select the most appropriate solution that aligns with both short-term goals and long-term system integrity. The correct approach involves a thorough impact assessment that prioritizes configuration over custom code, where possible. This means leveraging out-of-the-box features, business rules, workflows, and Power Automate flows before resorting to custom plugins or JavaScript. This approach is considered best professional practice because it aligns with the principles of maintainability and extensibility inherent in the Dynamics 365 platform. By minimizing custom code, the solution becomes easier to update, troubleshoot, and integrate with future platform releases, thereby reducing technical debt. This also aligns with the implicit guidance within Microsoft's documentation and best practice recommendations for Dynamics 365 development, which emphasize using the platform's declarative capabilities first. While no specific UK or US regulations directly govern the technical implementation of CRM customizations, the ethical and professional responsibility of a consultant is to deliver solutions that are robust, sustainable, and cost-effective in the long run, which this approach achieves. An incorrect approach would be to immediately jump to custom code development for every new requirement. This failure stems from a lack of understanding of the platform's declarative capabilities and an over-reliance on custom solutions. This leads to increased complexity, higher maintenance costs, and potential conflicts during system upgrades. Ethically, this approach fails to act in the client's best long-term interest by creating a system that is more difficult and expensive to manage. Another incorrect approach is to implement customizations without proper testing or documentation. This directly violates professional standards of quality and accountability. Without thorough testing, the customizations may introduce bugs or unintended side effects, impacting user productivity and data integrity. The absence of documentation makes it challenging for future administrators or consultants to understand, modify, or troubleshoot the system, leading to increased support costs and potential system instability. This is a failure in delivering a professional, well-supported solution. A third incorrect approach is to disregard the client's existing business processes and impose a purely technical solution without adequate consultation. This demonstrates a lack of understanding of the business context and can lead to user adoption issues and a solution that does not truly meet the client's needs. Professional decision-making in such situations requires a consultative approach, where the consultant works collaboratively with the client to understand their processes and then designs a solution that effectively supports and enhances those processes, rather than dictating a technical outcome. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. 1. Understand the business requirement. Fully grasp the client's need and the desired business outcome. 2. Explore out-of-the-box capabilities. Investigate if the requirement can be met using standard Dynamics 365 features and configurations. 3. Evaluate declarative customization options. Consider business rules, workflows, Power Automate, and form customizations. 4. Assess imperative customization needs. If declarative options are insufficient, evaluate the necessity and impact of custom code, plugins, JavaScript. 5. Conduct impact and risk assessment. Analyze the implications of each approach on system performance, maintainability, upgrades, and cost. 6. Document and communicate. Clearly document the chosen solution, its rationale, and any associated risks or limitations, and communicate this to the client. 7. Prioritize long-term value. Always aim for solutions that provide sustainable value and minimize technical debt. Question 14. The analysis reveals that a sales team is experiencing a high volume of leads being automatically converted into opportunities in Dynamics 365 sales, even when the leads lack sufficient qualifying information or have not been fully vetted by a sales representative. This is leading to an inflated opportunity pipeline and inefficient use of sales resources. The organization needs to ensure that only genuinely qualified leads are converted into opportunities, aligning with their established sales qualification criteria and internal data governance policies. Option A. Implement a custom workflow that automatically converts all leads to opportunities once they reach a certain status, regardless of further review. Option B. Modify the lead qualification criteria to be less stringent, allowing more leads to automatically convert to opportunities. Option C. Disable the automatic conversion of leads to opportunities entirely, requiring sales representatives to manually create opportunities from qualified leads. Option D. Configure the lead-to-opportunity conversion process to include a mandatory business process flow step for sales representatives to review and approve the lead before it can be converted into an opportunity. The correct answer is D. Configure the lead-to-opportunity conversion process to include a mandatory business process flow step for sales representatives to review and approve the lead before it can be converted into an opportunity. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in Dynamics 365 sales, where the automated conversion of a lead to an opportunity might not align with established business processes or regulatory compliance requirements. The professional challenge lies in ensuring that the system's behavior supports, rather than hinders, the organization's sales methodology and adheres to any relevant data privacy or sales process regulations. Careful judgment is required to configure the system in a way that balances automation with necessary human oversight and data integrity. The correct approach involves configuring the lead-to-opportunity conversion process to include a mandatory review step before an opportunity is created. This ensures that all necessary qualifying information has been gathered and validated, and that the lead meets the defined criteria for becoming a sales opportunity. From a regulatory and ethical standpoint, this approach supports data accuracy and prevents the creation of unqualified opportunities, which can lead to inefficient resource allocation and potentially misrepresent sales pipelines. It also aligns with principles of good data governance, ensuring that only legitimate business prospects are advanced in the sales cycle. An incorrect approach would be to bypass the review step and automatically convert all leads to opportunities upon qualification. This fails to account for potential data inaccuracies or incomplete qualification information, leading to a bloated and unreliable opportunity pipeline. It also bypasses a critical control point that might be necessary for compliance with internal sales policies or external regulations that require documented qualification before significant sales resources are committed. Another incorrect approach is to disable the automatic conversion entirely and require manual creation of opportunities from qualified leads. While this offers maximum control, it can be inefficient and may lead to delays in the sales process if not managed effectively. It also misses an opportunity to leverage system automation for routine tasks, potentially increasing the administrative burden on sales teams. A further incorrect approach would be to allow conversion without any defined qualification criteria, meaning any lead, regardless of its readiness, could become an opportunity. This is a significant failure in sales process management and data integrity, leading to wasted effort and a lack of focus on genuine sales prospects. It also undermines the purpose of lead qualification, which is to identify and prioritize high-potential leads. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve understanding the organization's specific sales process, identifying critical control points for data quality and compliance, and then configuring Dynamics 365 sales to enforce these controls. This often means leveraging out-of-the-box features like business process flows and workflow automation, but also understanding when custom development or specific configuration settings are needed to meet unique requirements. The goal is to create a system that is both efficient and compliant. Question 15. Cost-benefit analysis shows that implementing an automated lead scoring system within Dynamics 365 Sales can significantly improve sales team efficiency. As a Dynamics 365 Sales functional consultant, which approach best aligns with professional best practices and regulatory considerations for lead prioritization. Option A. Prioritize leads based on the perceived likelihood of a quick sale, as determined by the sales representative's subjective assessment of the prospect's personality. Option B. Implement a lead scoring system that heavily weights personal characteristics and social media activity, even if not directly related to the prospect's business needs or purchase intent. Option C. Develop a lead scoring model based on objective criteria such as engagement with marketing materials, website activity, and demographic information directly relevant to the product or service offering, with configurable thresholds for sales follow-up. Option D. Empower individual sales representatives to prioritize leads based on their personal judgment and existing relationships, without a standardized scoring mechanism. The correct answer is C. Develop a lead scoring model based on objective criteria such as engagement with marketing materials, website activity, and demographic information directly relevant to the product or service offering, with configurable thresholds for sales follow-up. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the efficiency gains of automated lead scoring with the need for accurate, unbiased, and compliant sales processes. The Dynamics 365 Sales Functional Consultant must ensure that the chosen lead scoring methodology not only drives sales productivity, but also adheres to relevant regulations and ethical considerations, particularly concerning data privacy and fair treatment of potential customers. Misinterpreting or misapplying lead scoring can lead to wasted sales efforts, missed opportunities, and potential regulatory scrutiny. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves implementing a lead scoring model that is transparent, auditable, and aligned with business objectives while respecting data privacy principles. This means defining clear scoring criteria based on observable behaviors and demographic information that are directly relevant to a prospect's likelihood to purchase. The model should be regularly reviewed and updated to ensure its continued accuracy and fairness, and any automation should be configurable to allow for human oversight and intervention. This approach is justified by best practices in CRM implementation and data management, which emphasize data integrity, user adoption, and compliance with data protection regulations like GDPR, if applicable to the exam's jurisdiction, assuming a global context or a jurisdiction with similar principles. The focus is on creating a system that is both effective for sales and ethically sound. Incorrect approaches analysis. An approach that relies solely on subjective sales representative intuition for lead prioritization, without a defined scoring mechanism, is professionally unacceptable. This is because it lacks objectivity, is difficult to audit, and can lead to inconsistent prioritization, potentially disadvantaging certain leads or prospects. It also fails to leverage the capabilities of Dynamics 365 for data-driven decision-making. An approach that prioritizes leads based on the perceived friendliness or personal rapport of the sales representative with the prospect, irrespective of their actual buying intent or qualification, is ethically flawed. This can lead to favoritism, inefficient resource allocation, and a failure to pursue genuinely promising opportunities. It also risks creating a perception of unfairness among prospects. An approach that uses overly broad or potentially discriminatory demographic criteria for scoring, without a clear and justifiable business need, is ethically and potentially legally problematic. Such criteria could inadvertently lead to biased treatment of prospects, and may violate anti-discrimination laws or data privacy regulations that prohibit the processing of sensitive personal data without explicit consent or a legitimate basis. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach lead scoring by first understanding the business objectives and defining what constitutes a qualified lead. This involves close collaboration with sales and marketing teams. The next step is to identify relevant data points that indicate buying intent and qualification. These data points should be objective and measurable. A scoring model should then be developed, which can be implemented and configured within Dynamics 365. Crucially, the model should be designed for transparency and auditability, allowing for regular review and refinement. Professionals must also be mindful of data privacy regulations, ensuring that the data used for scoring is collected and processed lawfully and ethically. The process should always allow for human judgment to override automated scoring when necessary, ensuring that no promising lead is overlooked due to an imperfect algorithm. Question 16. To address the challenge of a client needing to quickly deploy Dynamics 365 sales to improve their sales pipeline visibility, which of the following approaches best aligns with the fundamental principles of a successful and sustainable implementation? Option A. Prioritize the configuration of core data entities such as accounts, contacts, leads, and opportunities, and map out the essential stages of the sales process to ensure a functional baseline. Option B. Proceed with a minimal configuration, relying heavily on out-of-the-box functionality without any customization or process mapping to expedite deployment. Option C. Begin by integrating with all third-party applications the client uses, assuming this will provide the necessary data for sales visibility. Option D. Immediately focus on configuring advanced features like marketing automation workflows and complex reporting dashboards to provide immediate, high-level insights. The correct answer is A. Prioritize the configuration of core data entities such as accounts, contacts, leads, and opportunities, and map out the essential stages of the sales process to ensure a functional baseline. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a functional consultant to balance the immediate business need for rapid deployment with the fundamental principles of data integrity and user adoption, all within the context of Dynamics 365 sales. A rushed implementation without proper foundational setup can lead to significant long-term issues, including inaccurate reporting, poor user experience, and ultimately, a failure to realize the intended business value of the CRM system. Careful judgment is required to identify the core requirements that must be addressed upfront to ensure a successful and sustainable implementation. The correct approach involves prioritizing the foundational elements of Dynamics 365 sales, specifically focusing on core data entities and essential business processes. This means ensuring that the fundamental data structures, like accounts, contacts, leads, and opportunities, are correctly defined, and that the basic sales process flows are configured. This approach is right because it aligns with the core purpose of Dynamics 365 sales, to manage customer relationships and drive sales effectively. By establishing a solid foundation, the system is more likely to be adopted by users, provide accurate insights, and support future growth and customization. This adheres to the implicit regulatory expectation of providing a functional and reliable system that supports business operations ethically and efficiently. An incorrect approach that skips essential data entity configuration and basic process mapping would be professionally unacceptable. This failure would lead to a system that is difficult to use, generates unreliable data, and fails to meet even the most basic sales management needs. This directly contravenes the professional responsibility to deliver a solution that is fit for purpose and supports the client's business objectives. Another incorrect approach that focuses solely on advanced features without establishing core functionality would also be a significant failure. This would result in a system that is overly complex for users to navigate and may not even be able to perform fundamental sales tasks, leading to user frustration and abandonment. This demonstrates a lack of understanding of the product's core value proposition and a failure to meet the client's fundamental needs. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a thorough discovery phase to understand the client's core business objectives and critical sales processes. This should be followed by a phased implementation strategy that prioritizes foundational configuration and data integrity before moving to more advanced features. Regular communication with stakeholders to manage expectations and ensure alignment throughout the project is also crucial. Question 17. The review process indicates that sales representatives are frequently bypassing the standard quote approval process in Dynamics 365 sales, directly sending quotes to customers without awaiting managerial sign-off. This practice is leading to inconsistencies in pricing and terms offered. Which of the following approaches best mitigates this risk and ensures regulatory compliance? Option A. Provide additional training to sales representatives on the importance of the approval process and trust them to adhere to it. Option B. Implement a mandatory multi-stage approval workflow within Dynamics 365 Sales that prevents a quote from being sent to a customer until all required approvals are digitally recorded. Option C. Create a separate, manual checklist that sales representatives must complete and submit for each quote sent to a customer. Option D. Configure Dynamics 365 Sales to send automated reminders to sales representatives and their managers about pending approvals. The correct answer is B. Implement a mandatory multi-stage approval workflow within Dynamics 365 Sales that prevents a quote from being sent to a customer until all required approvals are digitally recorded. Explanation. The review process indicates a potential breakdown in the controlled generation and management of sales quotes within a Dynamics 365 sales environment. This scenario is professionally challenging because it directly impacts the accuracy of financial reporting, customer trust, and adherence to internal sales policies, all of which have regulatory implications. Ensuring that quotes are generated, reviewed, and approved according to established procedures is critical for maintaining data integrity and compliance. The correct approach involves leveraging the built-in workflow and approval functionalities within Dynamics 365 Sales to enforce a structured quote generation and management process. This ensures that all quotes undergo necessary scrutiny before being presented to customers. From a regulatory perspective, this aligns with principles of good corporate governance and financial control, which often require documented evidence of authorization for financial commitments. Specifically, for a Dynamics 365 Sales Functional Consultant Associate, understanding and implementing these controls is paramount to advising clients on best practices that support compliance with internal controls and potentially external financial regulations that mandate accurate record-keeping and authorization. An incorrect approach that bypasses or inadequately utilizes the approval workflows poses significant regulatory and ethical risks. For instance, allowing quotes to be sent to customers without proper review could lead to misrepresentation of pricing or terms, potentially violating consumer protection laws or contractual obligations. Furthermore, it undermines internal audit trails, making it difficult to demonstrate compliance during an audit. Another incorrect approach, such as relying solely on manual email confirmations for approvals, introduces a high risk of errors, lost documentation, and a lack of a centralized, auditable record, which is a failure in establishing robust internal controls. Relying on informal verbal agreements for quote approvals is even more problematic, as it lacks any verifiable evidence and is highly susceptible to disputes and misinterpretations, directly contravening the need for clear, documented authorization. Professionals should adopt a decision-making framework that prioritizes the implementation of system-driven controls for critical business processes like quote management. This involves understanding the client's specific regulatory environment and internal policies, and then configuring Dynamics 365 Sales to enforce these requirements through automation, workflows, and approval processes. The focus should always be on creating an auditable, transparent, and controlled process that minimizes manual intervention and reduces the risk of noncompliance. Question 18. What factors determine the most effective and compliant approach to designing a lead qualification process within Dynamics 365 Sales, considering the need to gather sufficient information for sales engagement while respecting data privacy and ethical business practices? Option A. The speed at which leads can be moved through the sales pipeline, prioritizing volume of qualified leads over the depth of understanding of their needs. Option B. The clarity and transparency of the qualification criteria, the relevance of the information sought to assess genuine interest and potential fit, and the adherence to data minimization principles. Option C. The ability to automate the entire qualification process using AI-driven insights, even if it means reducing human oversight and direct customer interaction. Option D. The extent to which the qualification process gathers detailed demographic and firmographic data, regardless of its immediate relevance to the sales opportunity, to build a comprehensive customer profile. The correct answer is D. The extent to which the qualification process gathers detailed demographic and firmographic data, regardless of its immediate relevance to the sales opportunity, to build a comprehensive customer profile. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because the Dynamics 365 sales functional consultant must balance the client's business objectives with the ethical and regulatory obligations surrounding data handling and customer interactions. The core of the challenge lies in ensuring that the lead qualification process, while efficient and effective for sales, also respects customer privacy and avoids misleading practices, all within the context of the Microsoft Certified Dynamics 365 Sales Functional Consultant Associate Exams Implied Jurisdiction, which is generally understood to align with common business practices and data protection principles, often reflecting GDPR-like concepts in its training materials, though specific exam jurisdiction is not explicitly stated for this question. Careful judgment is required to design a process that is both compliant and drives business value. The correct approach involves designing a lead qualification process that prioritizes gathering essential, relevant information to assess genuine interest and potential fit, while clearly communicating the purpose of data collection and respecting the lead's consent. This aligns with principles of data minimization and purpose limitation, ensuring that only necessary data is collected for a defined purpose, lead qualification. Ethically, this approach builds trust and demonstrates respect for the individual's privacy. From a regulatory perspective, this aligns with the spirit of data protection laws that require transparency and lawful basis for processing personal data. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on maximizing the quantity of data collected, regardless of relevance or consent, fails to respect the lead's privacy and can lead to non-compliance with data protection regulations. This can result in the collection of excessive personal information, which is a common pitfall in data protection frameworks. Another incorrect approach that involves making assumptions about a lead's intent or needs without direct engagement or verification is ethically problematic, as it can lead to misrepresentation and wasted effort for both the sales team and the lead. This approach also risks violating principles of accuracy and fairness in data processing. A further incorrect approach that neglects to document the qualification criteria and the rationale behind lead scoring or progression can lead to inconsistent application of the qualification process. This lack of transparency and auditable process can make it difficult to demonstrate compliance if challenged, and can result in biased decision-making. Professionals should adopt a decision-making framework that begins with understanding the business objectives for lead qualification. This should then be mapped against relevant data protection principles and ethical considerations. The process design should incorporate mechanisms for transparency, consent, data minimization, and clear qualification criteria. Regular review and auditing of the process are essential to ensure ongoing compliance and effectiveness. Question 19. Strategic planning requires a functional consultant to design a Dynamics 365 sales user interface that not only enhances sales team productivity, but also rigorously adheres to data protection regulations. Considering the need for granular control over sensitive customer information and auditability of access, which approach to navigation and user interface design best balances these competing demands? Option A. Configure system-level security roles and field-level security profile to restrict access to sensitive data, while utilizing clear visual cues and simplified navigation paths for common sales tasks. Option B. Focus on maximizing the number of visible fields and options on primary sales forms to ensure users have immediate access to all potential information, with compliance checks handled by a separate administrative process. Option C. Implement extensive custom forms and dashboards that consolidate all customer data, making it easily accessible to the entire sales team, and rely on user discretion for data privacy. Option D. Prioritize a highly streamlined and intuitive user interface for all sales activities, with the assumption that user training will adequately address any data handling compliance concerns. The correct answer is A. Configure system-level security roles and field-level security profile to restrict access to sensitive data, while utilizing clear visual cues and simplified navigation paths for common sales tasks. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge for Dynamics 365 sales functional consultants, balancing user adoption and efficiency with the need to adhere to evolving regulatory requirements for data handling and system access. The challenge lies in translating abstract regulatory principles into tangible user interface configurations within Dynamics 365 sales. A misinterpretation or misapplication of these requirements can lead to non-compliance, data breaches, or a system that is too cumbersome for users, thereby hindering productivity and potentially leading to workarounds that bypass intended controls. The consultant must demonstrate a deep understanding of both the functional capabilities of Dynamics 365 Sales and the specific regulatory landscape to propose effective solutions. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves proactively identifying and configuring system elements that directly support regulatory compliance, such as role-based security, data masking, and audit trails, while ensuring these configurations are intuitive and do not impede essential user workflows. This aligns with the principles of privacy by design and security by design, which are increasingly embedded in regulatory frameworks governing data protection and system integrity. Specifically, for the Microsoft Certified Dynamics 365 Sales Functional Consultant Associate exam, this means leveraging the platform's built-in security roles, field-level security, and auditing features to meet the requirements of relevant data protection regulations, e.g., GDPR if the jurisdiction implies EU, or similar principles if a U.S. context is assumed for general data protection. The focus is on making compliance an inherent part of the user experience, rather than an add-on. Incorrect approaches analysis. Implementing a solution that prioritizes user convenience over regulatory mandates is a significant ethical and regulatory failure. This approach risks exposing sensitive data, violating data privacy laws, and leading to severe penalties for the organization. For example, disabling audit logging to speed up data entry would directly contravene regulations requiring transaction traceability. Another incorrect approach is to implement complex, non-intuitive security measures that are difficult for end users to navigate. While seemingly compliant, this can lead to user frustration, errors, and a tendency to seek workarounds that bypass the intended security, ultimately undermining compliance. This fails to meet the functional requirement of a usable system. Finally, relying solely on user training without configuring the system to enforce compliance is insufficient. Regulations often mandate technical controls, not just procedural ones. While training is important, it cannot replace system-level enforcement of data access and handling rules. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a risk-based approach, starting with a thorough understanding of the applicable regulatory framework and its implications for data handling and system access within Dynamics 365 Sales. This involves mapping regulatory requirements to specific system features and user roles. The process should prioritize implementing technical controls that enforce compliance by default, followed by user-friendly interfaces that guide users towards compliant behavior. Regular review and testing of configurations against evolving regulations and business needs are crucial. Question 20. The performance metrics show a significant increase in the number of opportunities being created and tracked within Dynamics 365 Sales, but there are concerns about the potential for overcollection and retention of customer data during this process. As a Dynamics 365 Sales functional consultant, what is the most compliant approach to address this situation, ensuring adherence to data privacy regulations? Option A. Focus solely on the functional aspects of opportunity tracking within Dynamics 365 Sales, assuming that the sales team is fully aware of and responsible for all data privacy compliance. Option B. Advise the sales team to manually delete customer data from Dynamics 365 Sales records once an opportunity is closed, without establishing automated retention policies. Option C. Implement clear data minimization policies within Dynamics 365 Sales, ensuring that only essential data points required for opportunity progression are captured, and that data retention periods are defined and enforced. Option D. Configure Dynamics 365 Sales to capture all available customer contact and interaction details for every opportunity, regardless of direct relevance, to ensure a comprehensive historical record. The correct answer is D. Configure Dynamics 365 Sales to capture all available customer contact and interaction details for every opportunity, regardless of direct relevance, to ensure a comprehensive historical record. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the need for efficient sales processes with the imperative to comply with data privacy regulations, specifically the General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR. as it applies to customer interactions within Dynamics 365 Sales. The core tension lies in how customer data, particularly sensitive information that might be captured during opportunity creation and tracking, is handled and stored. A functional consultant must ensure that the system's configuration and the sales team's practices align with GDPR principles, such as data minimization, purpose limitation, and the right to be forgotten. The correct approach involves configuring Dynamics 365 Sales to facilitate the capture of only necessary opportunity-related data, implementing clear data retention policies, and ensuring that sales representatives are trained on how to handle customer data ethically and legally within the system. This aligns with GDPR emphasis on data minimization and purpose limitation, ensuring that customer information is collected and processed only for the specific, legitimate purposes of managing sales opportunities. Furthermore, it supports the right to erasure by enabling the deletion of data when it's no longer needed, thereby maintaining compliance and customer trust. An incorrect approach that involves broadly capturing all available customer information without a clear business justification for each data point fails to adhere to the principle of data minimization. This increases the risk of non-compliance with GDPR, as it involves processing more data than is necessary for the defined purpose of opportunity management. Another incorrect approach that neglects to establish clear data retention and deletion policies directly contravenes GDPR requirements for data storage limitation and the right to erasure. This can lead to the indefinite storage of personal data, increasing the risk of breaches and making it difficult to comply with data subject requests for deletion. Finally, an approach that does not involve training sales staff on data privacy best practices within Dynamics 365 Sales creates a significant risk of unintentional noncompliance, as individuals may not understand their obligations regarding the handling of customer data. Professionals should adopt a risk-based approach, starting with understanding the specific data being collected for opportunity management. They should then map this to GDPR requirements, identifying any potential areas of non-compliance. This involves consulting with legal or compliance experts if necessary, configuring the system to support compliant data handling, and implementing robust training programs for end users. The decision-making process should prioritize data protection by design and by default, ensuring that compliance is embedded into the system's functionality and user workflows.